So I transferred the wort through the strainer, and that picked up the rest of the hops since I didn't use that hops bag that was going to be repurposed earlier. So get rid of that. And then we're going to aerate. This is where I'm using the whisk. Now the point of aerating, and some people skip this step, but the idea is that yeast needs oxygen. So if you stress the yeast, it could possibly produce some off flavors. So by introducing air into the wort, you're providing the yeast with the air that it needs. This would also be the point where you can get your gravity reading. Because this is an extract beer, I'm not going to do that. The math is what the math is, and the only way it can be off is if I'm significantly off of the post-boil volume. Looking at the measurement on the bucket, I'm actually a little bit under volume. That's probably because of my boil rate on the stove. Again, stove tops, that's one of the issues we have to contend with. So really I'm just going to be a little bit over my target starting gravity, which for this style of beer really, is perfectly fine. So I'm going to finish aerating, and then we're going to dry pitch the yeast. So I finished the aeration of the wort, and we're going to dry pitch the yeast now. But before we do that, going back to my volume being off, with extract brewing, you could add more water to your fermenter if you want to at this point. Again, anything that you introduce could be a potential contaminant, so it's a little debatable whether you want to do that. If you did, you'd want to have a reliable water source. But it also brings up the point with extract brewing that there is a method where you basically, you don't do the full 5-gallon batch on the stove, simply because stoves would have a hard time boiling that much wort. And you can do a concentrate and just do everything as far as volume of water. You can do it by half, use all the ingredients that you normally would, but then add water at this stage, then aerate, then pitch the yeast. And the thing that you're doing by doing that is you were able to use a smaller kettle, like a large stock pot, and you can come up to a boil temperature faster. You can come down to the pitching temperature faster, because if you're using an ice bath, new home brewers will oftentimes experience the ice bath method a few times and decide to go out and get a like a wort chiller, something to bring down that temperature a lot faster. But also, if you're going to stick with that method, having half the volume to bring down a temperature, particularly if your sink isn't deep enough. There's a multitude of factors why you might want to do a more concentrated wort and then adding water at this point to bring it up to your post boil volume. So that's an option as well. But today it's a small batch to begin with. I'm not really concerned about the math that much, and it's pretty close and will be still within range for this style of beer. So I'm going to pitch the yeast here. And this is what they call dry pitching the yeast. There's an abundance of yeast cells that even if we don't get all the yeast cells live and actively working, that there's so many in dry yeast that we're still going to have a very good fermentation, a very healthy fermentation. So at this point, I'm just going to put the lid on and the airlock and put it in a cool, dark place for the next week or two to ferment, and then we're done.